You're listening to High Frequency Healing on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that explores the awakening of superpowers through higher dimensional healing.
Hello, this is AngelaMaría, one of the Superpower Up hosts, and you're listening to High Frequency Healing Show. The only difference between where you are to where you want to be is the actions you take here and now to heal your life. So let's take a deep breath and be here and now. I invite you to enjoy this time together. So here we go. Let's welcome Maryanne Sea to my show today. We will be talking about the meaning of intuitive healing. Maryanne, MSW, discovered the power of intuition in healing as she was recovering from severe environmental illness. In order to heal, she had to live in extreme isolation from the world in a room known as a bubble. Here, she developed her intuition and called upon it to understand the emotional, mental, and spiritual content of her illness. When she recovered, she began to teach others. She introduced intuition in healing courses to nurses, doctors, and other health professionals at many Australian hospitals and also taught at 4 Australian universities. She was the first coordinator of the Mind-Body Healing course within the Master of Wellness degree program at RMIT University in Melbourne. She is the author of The Healing of a Sensitive, and she is working on a new book entitled Reunion, whose focus is pre-birth, sensations in communication. She has been a frequent guest on Australian radio shows and has appeared in documentaries, news, features with ABC USA, BBC UK, and ABC Australia. She holds a master's degree in social work from the University of Michigan in USA. So now, please join me to welcome Maryanne Sea. Maryanne, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, AngelaMaría.
Oh my God, I got goosebumps just reading your story. So let's start asking you, what's your healing superpower?
Well, as I was recovering from environmental illness, it became obvious that my sensitivity to chemicals, mold, and everything else had in it a sensitivity to other people's feelings, their thoughts, their traumas, and their past. So I began to discover that I could feel other people's bodies inside my own body. In fact, it may be one of the reasons I was so sick. I couldn't tell the difference between someone else's feelings and my own. So this capacity to feel other people's bodies inside my body is what I have been using for about 25 years in my healing work.
Wow, Maryanne. And we are going to go deep into this really big superpower. So will you please take us back to your early years and name one memorable life lesson that is useful for you today?
I actually think it would be from a time that I was in my first bubble. Just so people know, your listeners know, a bubble is a room with really nothing in it. In my case, it was a 9 by 12 room that had 2 chairs in it. I slept on the chairs, and that was it. And the answer to the question does relate to my early years. One day I was getting ready to go out to the bathroom, and I could do that if I held my breath. I couldn't be in the bathroom breathing because the fiberglass bathtub would affect me and I would be very sick. So I was about to go to the door and open the door and hold my breath. And when I put my hand on the doorknob, I got the pain. I got the pain that I would get when I was near chemicals. And I quickly said to myself, how can I get the pain? I'm still in my bubble. I haven't gone out yet. So I did it again. I put my hand on the doorknob and I got the pain. And I said to myself, am I scared of getting out of this bubble? And then I said, am I scared of life? Do I really not want to be in my body and be here? Is it all too much for me? And of course, it relates to my childhood and even before birth. In my case, yes, it was too much for me. And yes, I was at a very deep level trying to get out of life, and of course found myself in the bubble.
Wow. Maryanne, and I know we're going to go deeper, but I can't wait to ask you this. So do you believe that that moment when you were asking those questions to yourself is when your intuition or your higher self start talking to you and you were able to listen?
Yes. Before that, my doctor was brilliant. She saved my life, but we were approaching it primarily physically, which meant basically stay away from everything. I literally sat on a chair all day and slept on the chair at night, and we had nothing near me at all. And we just hoped that my immune system would get stronger. But in that moment, when I touched the doorknob and I said, my God, I'm scared of life, I do believe my capacity to know through feeling, I didn't think it, I felt it, was initiated, and it became an incredibly important part of my healing.
Wow. So, Maryanne, where can people go to find out more about you?
I would say my website is the best place, and that's just my name, www.maryannesea.com.
So we've been talking with Maryanne Sea about the meaning of intuitive healing. When we come back from this short break, we are going to talk more about her healing superpower. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
We're back, and you are listening to High Frequency Healing Show. Today, we are talking with Maryanne Sea about the meaning of intuitive healing. So, Maryanne, and we already know this answer, but I really want to ask you, was there a burning bush moment that made your heart desire changing your path in life? And because we already know the answer, I would like to know a little bit about your life before that burning bush moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and there was another moment that really basically changed the whole course of my life. Mm-hmm. I had just gotten my master's degree. I came from a family of very high achievers. Achievement was just about everything, and I was following in those footsteps. I wanted to be, do something wonderful and change the world and, all of this. And I was walking home alone in a blizzard in Michigan. I should never have been walking. No one was walking. And I walked and I saw a red light and I was absolutely freezing and I couldn't see. And I just said, I've got to get home. I've got to get home. And I ran against the red light and a car was coming up the hill. And in order to get up the hill, the woman had to push very hard down on the accelerator because there was so much ice. And she hit me head on. And within 10 minutes, the whole course of my life had changed. I presumed I'd be back at work in 3 days, and I really didn't get back to work for 22 years.
Whoa.
So it was really spirit taking me off this path of I'll change the world, I'll be somebody, I'll be well known, I'll be a high achiever, taking me right off that path and putting me in a situation where the biggest goal every day was to just make sure that I didn't breathe something that would cause extreme pain. And I must, inform your readers, it was very life or death for me. I was down to 69 pounds. I really couldn't have anything near me at all. And there was very, very little food that I was able to eat without getting sick. So it was quite life or death for quite a while. But now, of course, AngelaMaría, I look back on that moment and I remember when I said, I've got to get home. And that's the path I was put on, finding a home in my body and finding a home on this earth.
And that's the real home. That's the real home. So, and this is just out of curiosity. This accident, the car accident you had, in some way just like open up this illness that you have.
Yes, the theory is this. The theory is that we are all in a rowboat today, which has things like pesticides and plastics and all kinds of things that weren't around before the late 1940s. And they take a toll on our bodies. Some people are very, very strong and cope well. Others are more sensitive, more fragile. I'm obviously one of the more sensitive. But what they often say, and we hear this story among many who are environmentally ill or chronically fatigued, is that there's one event or one exposure that does what we call is the straw that breaks the camel's back. That phrase. And the car accident I was sick as a child. I had lots of antibiotics. I had to struggle to stay strong. But clearly the pressure I put on myself to be the best was a big factor. And then the car accident really caused my immune system to crash. And within a year, I couldn't have even a pencil, not even a pencil near me because of the yellow paint on it. And I would double over in pain. So for many years, I didn't look at a book or any printed material for 7 years. I couldn't read my own mail because of the ballpoint pen. Friends had to read it to me from outside the bubble. So I basically am saying this so your listeners understand it was a complete crash of my immune system.
Wow, Maryanne. So we've been talking about how this intuition was the key for your healing process. Could you please share with us the meaning of intuition for you?
Yes, it's a word used a lot, and whenever I've taught it, I've tried to give a very simple, clear definition, and that is intuition is knowing through feeling. We typically know something because we think about it, but in the case of intuition, we don't think, we feel. And usually that feeling is accompanied by some sign in the body. So somebody might say, I just feel it. I have goosebumps, or, oh, my chest feels so open, or I just know it because my spine has a fluttery feeling. Often people will have a physical sign, but if they don't, it doesn't mean they're not capable of intuition. They just know it through feeling. And the colloquial phrase that's often used to imply that somebody is relying on intuition is this. They'll say something like, I just know it. Mm-hmm. They don't have any reason to know it, and maybe logic says it isn't the case, but they just know it.
I love this conversation, Maryanne, and I told you since I greeted you some minutes before, because this is, for me, and according to my experience and all the interviews I have had, and also with the clients that I work with, this is the key of life. If you can connect that inner voice, if you can connect that feeling that is just telling you this is right, and I just know it, if you can just go that step forward in your life, you have the key for happiness, for success, the key for abundance, for health, because nobody else knows better than yourself. Mm-hmm. And that inner master has a beautiful voice that wants to be heard. But sometimes in life, we have to go to those burning bush moments. We have to go through those car accidents, through those illness, to the divorce. We have to go through the cancer. We have to go through the experience of losing your job and being with no job to pay your bills. And we have to go through that to be able to go to our home. Thank you so much for sharing this, Maryanne, not just with us, with my listeners, but also with the world.
Thank you.
And in the same line, Maryanne, so what's healing?
Yeah, again, because I've taught a lot over the years and love to teach, I always try to keep the definition of healing very simple also. And that is, it's expanding beyond a limit. At any point, we can scan the body-mind and find contraction or tightness in lots of places. Our diaphragm, our throat. My clients will do this all the time. They'll say, my throat is tight, my diaphragm is tight. We can find the places that we have stored suffering, trauma, perhaps. We can find them very easily. Healing is expanding. It's releasing contraction at any level, physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual.
Releasing contraction.
And to put it very simply, again, we can as a closed fist or an open fist. At any point, we can be tightening, tight, 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 or we can be opening, yielding, opening, yielding. Healing, of course, is the gesture of moving from tightness, closed fist, to open fist.
I just, many things come to my mind. So I'm just going to try to follow this path of the interview before I go somewhere else. And I will just keep on developing all of these ideas and emotions that I have right now when I listen to you. I would love to know, and I know our listeners too, to hear more about that inner healing process guided by your intuition.
Okay, I just flashed on an example, a client that I worked with last April. When I went into her body, she drew me to a place that was very tight, and she said, I don't want a baby. Now, this is a woman who was working very hard to conceive with an acupuncturist, with a naturopath, etc. But she said to me, I don't want a baby. So my job as the intuitive is to go into that tightness, go into that refusal, and see what's going on. She could not access that. The content was too deep, too upsetting. She just couldn't get there. But that's my job, to become intimate with the tissue of someone's body, to feel where the tightness is, to feel what's stuck there. And I was able to feel, I could easily see her time in utero when she was about to be born. And I saw how scared she was. And I saw the mother's inability to connect with her. Even though the mother's a good person, she just couldn't make an energetic connection with the child. So of course, my client at a deep level was saying, I don't want a baby because I don't want to put anyone through what I went through. And I don't want to remind myself of what I went through. So this was the process of healing. It took 4 sessions. And during that time, I asked her one other question. She did not want to answer it. I said, can you be happy? Can you be expanded, heart open, even if you don't have a child? And she said, I don't want to answer that. And I said, but if you could answer it, it might be the key. So she went closer to that and spent a week and wrote me and said, I've never been happier in my life. And she was able to be in her body. The past was lifting off her. Tight fist was changing to open fist. She conceived 10 days later, and she had the baby 6 days ago.
Oh, Maryanne. So all of this it's so beautiful now because you already went through that process. Tell us a little bit about that moment when you start asking those questions to yourself. And you ask to yourself, am I afraid of living? Am I afraid of being in this existence? All of those questions start coming up into your mind. And what was the process for you? Because sometimes I do believe each of us, we have those questions that we just ignore, that we think, oh my God, I'm crazy. What is this? Why am I thinking about this? and we just ignore it. We pass by. But you were able to, and you were able to do it just because you were in these circumstances where there was nothing else to do than you and your thoughts, your emotions.
Angela,
and I think it's so beautiful.
You said it so well. I was about to say I didn't have anything else to do.
Right. So I would like to know all of that process, Maryanne, because I think that when you have gone through that, if we can guide the people who listen, what is going on inside? And how do you just listen to those thoughts? But the most important thing is, what did you do with those thoughts?
Okay. Yes, I'd be happy to comment on it. You're right. I didn't have anything else to do. That's the first thing. Number two, I was highly motivated. Remember, I was only 27 years old when I went into a bubble. I weighed 69 pounds. I was labeled permanently and totally disabled by the U.S. government, the first person ever to get that label as a result of chemical sensitivity. I was given a pension for life and was told that I would probably never work again. That's why they gave me the pension. So I was very motivated to see if there was any way at all, other than sitting in a bubble, that I could come back into the world. So this is what I would start to do. I would say things like, it would be fun to be outside and in the snow now. And I'd look outside and I'd see the snow. Then I'd sit on my chair and I'd close my eyes and I'd watch my body. I said it would be fun to be out, but then I'd see my body was very tight. I'd say, okay, why is my body so tight when I'm talking about being in life and something I love, the snow? So I'd go into the tightness. I just figured out how to do this. I'd go into the tightness. I'd find it in my body. I wouldn't worry about the thought, because we know all trauma, all stress locks itself in the tissue of the body. The greatest, the most well-known and most brilliant therapist of trauma today is a doctor named Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And the title of his book, AngelaMaría, conveys it all. He says, the body keeps the score. So the thinking mind might say, oh, I love snow. I would love to be out in snow. Life is wonderful. But you have to go to the tissue. You have to go to the cell, really, and find out, is it cooperating with that desire to be alive, or is it tight, holding fear, sorrow, and anger? So I just got good at sitting on my chair. I did have a TV in the room, an old 1950 TV set, but I made a promise to myself I wouldn't turn it on till 10 o'clock at night. And most of the day, I just sat there and went into those tight places, and I started to cry. And I started to remember the past. And I started to remember before I was born and what my poor mother went through. It was very intense. And it just started to come up and out. And I started to feel rage. And I started to get very, very comfortable feeling terror, real fear, rage, real anger, and great sorrow and aloneness. And I became friends with my own pain. And as I felt them, of course, we know the minute we start to feel something, the minute we'll let our attention get close to it, it starts to release. That's the power of attention or awareness. So I began to say, my God, I'm better. I'm stronger. And then to finish the story, one day a woman came in. She was a nurse, a good friend of mine, and she said, I think today's the day that we're going to go outside. And I said, no, I'm not ready. I've waited a year with nothing. I want to wait longer and be sure that I won't have pain, because if I have pain, then I'll be hopeless and I'll give up. She said, no, today's the day. So I said to her, if you hold my hand and don't let it go, I'll go outside. Oh. So we walked out the apartment door into the hallway, and I could smell smoke. And I immediately held my breath, because I said to myself, it doesn't matter that I can tolerate cigarette smoke. I won't be around it that much. What matters is I can be outside. That's all I really need to know. So she held my hand tight. We went down the steps. She opened the door. I went out. And then I took 3 deep breaths, and I waited for the pain, and I didn't have any. And then I started to cry and dance and sing. And I just knew it would be years probably before I was back at work, or I didn't care. I just knew that what I was doing in that bubble on my own was working. I was becoming comfortable, safe in being in my body and being alive on this earth.
Maryanne, if we have to finish this interview here, I will be more than happy, just because that is the proof. What happened when you are able to go inside and listen to your inner master and listen to your feelings and your emotions, but even better, how did you manipulate the energy to make yourself feel better? That is an energy manipulation. You were just able to imagine a different reality for your body from the emotion, but it was guided by your intuition. So,
and the other part, AngelaMaría, I have to say, because it's so important, they say love is the healer. They say intimacy heals. I was very frightened to let anyone love me. I looked like I took it in. Oh, thank you so much. That's so lovely of you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was a polite person. But the reality is the love didn't get into my body. I was too terrified. And what happened in that bubble, I couldn't have survived without friends. They would come at 7 o'clock at night. They made sure I was never alone. They had a roster. And one would come at 7, then the next night another one would come at 7. And I was always with someone talking about lots of things for 3 to 4 hours. And that was absolute nourishment. Here I was completely vulnerable, and they would just come in happy to see me. And I would just start drinking it in. And then to finish the story, of course, I have to say that one day a man walked into that room, and I thought, nobody's ever going to want me. Look at me. I'm white as a ghost. I'm so skinny. I just sit on a chair all day. And he left. And that night, my friend came at 7, and she asked me about the day. And I said, this wonderful man visited me. And I said, I want to marry him. And she said, really? I said, yes, I do. I want to marry him. She looked at me like, I don't think you should be thinking of marriage.
I love it.
I said, I really do. And then I said, but he won't want me. Look at me. I mean, really, who will want me, Marielle? I wasn't crying, but I was just saying, let's be realistic. And she said, you have to trust. So I stayed up all night long. Literally, I sat in my chair and I said, I trust, I trust, I choose to trust, I trust. I had a phone outside the bubble. It was made of wood. A friend made it for me. I could stay on it about 30 seconds before I got the pain. So at least I could answer the phone for 30 seconds. So the next day the phone rang. I reached out of my bubble. I couldn't go out, but I reached out, got the phone, and the person said, hi, this is Corey. I had a lovely time being with you. Could I come back and visit you again?
No, don't tell me it was the guy.
Yes, and that was 40 years ago.
And that's the guy you married, and is the person that is just walking with you this beautiful journey.
Yes, and it's not been easy. I wish I could say that on that day I went out that it all ended. I've almost died 3 times from pesticide. He's had to keep me alive. He's done it. He's done it. He's been determined that I would survive. So we've been together 40 years.
Maryanne. So I just love this. This is a romantic story. You should just write a book about it and have a movie, because this is just so touching.
I can't believe you said that. I did write a book. I put it in a bag and sent it to Oprah Winfrey. They loved the book. And I was about to go to Chicago to be on the show, and 9/11 happened.
No.
Yes, and then 2 film producers called me and said, I want to tell the love story. I want to tell the love story. Then both of them had big changes in their personal lives and couldn't do it. So the story almost made it to film. And I do hope one day more people will hear it, because it really highlights the power of love in healing. People caring for another, and what that can do to a body who's been so shut down, so frightened, so alone as mine was.
So how important is to understand the emotional, mental, and spiritual content of the illness, as you express it in your bio, into the healing process, Maryanne?
Well, we have to always begin with the concept of holism, or holistic healing. Holistic healing says that the mind, body, emotion, and spirit are all connected all the time. So you never have a thought without it influencing the body. You never have something going on in the body that doesn't influence you emotionally. You never have a moment of connecting with spirit or not connecting that doesn't affect the body, thought, and emotion. All connected all the time. So we don't want people to start looking for the one emotion that caused their illness. People can do that. Oh, I've got to find the one emotion. There is generally not one emotion. It's the interplay of emotion, mind, body, and spirit. So in my case, as a little girl, they used to spray pesticides on my street. It was 1950. We didn't know what they did. That weakened my immune system. We know the car accident weakened my immune system. We know that I was allergic to dairy and wheat from the time I was 1 or 2. We know these physical factors, but we cannot just look at the physical. We have to remember the holistic picture and also explore at least whether emotions and thoughts that are still in the body that may be completely unconscious to the person do in fact have an effect on how energy is flowing and therefore to what degree a person can heal.
Thank you for sharing this. So based on your experience, Maryanne, could we say that you create a healing method?
Yes, I didn't plan to be honest with you. But what happened in a nutshell is when I was 39, Corey and I were trying to keep me alive. I had had a bad pesticide exposure and I was giving up. It had been so many years of this. I was in a room with nothing except a wool blanket and I just was lying there. There were no windows really to see any. It was just too much. I couldn't have books near me. And I just said out loud, I just called out loud, I said, if you'll find a way that will turn this sensitivity into something that will help people, then I'll keep trying to live. It was just a throwing it out to God, really. And 6 months later, 2 friends told me I had to go see this healer. And she was in, what's that state? New Mexico. And so we went to see her, and she looked at me, and she glared at me and said, do you realize you're extraordinarily gifted? And I said, no. I said, I don't think you understand. I'm actually very sick. And she said, do you realize how sensitive you are? And I'm embarrassed to say I rolled my eyes. I was just like, don't say that to me. And my husband quickly said, oh, she hates that word. Every doctor tells her this. And then she yelled at me. She said, you've been given a gift. You could be helping people, and you're wasting it.
Whoa.
And I remembered the prayer. I said, oh, my God. And she said, bring a photo next week of someone who's sick, and I'll teach you what to do. Well, it takes too long to explain, but there was nothing to teach. She just told me to look up at the photo. She said, open your chakras and tell me what's the matter with him. I didn't even know where the chakras were. I just said to myself, I know there's one at the bottom and I know there's one at the top. Would everything else open up as well? I was so scared of her, to be honest with you. I picked up the photo and I went, oh my God. And I said, his throat, his this. She said, see, you've been doing it all your life, taking on other people's pain. Now it's time to help people. So that was 1989. And yes, since that time till now, 30 years later, I have evolved a method that involves allowing my attention and my client's attention to go deep into the tissue and invite healing. And a lot of times I do this on my own with my client not present, just to help the content that might be very stuck there. It might be terror like me, it might be rage, to help that release. And I do a lot of this work with babies who are before they're born. A lot of my work is with pregnant women who say, can you help me make sure that my baby is receiving the love that I know I want to give? So I work with the child before birth to make sure that he or she is not tightening, but is actually allowing the love to feed.
So let's go, because I want to talk a little bit about 2 books. The first one, that is The Healing of a Sensitive, and now the one that you just told us that's entitled Reunion. So let's talk about The Healing of a Sensitive. I believe is where you just tell all this process that you went through. Is there something important in that book that you say, you need to read this book because...
Well, I will be very honest with you, AngelaMaría. I stopped trying to. I published my book in Australia in 2001, and I distributed it to not all, but many of my students and people at universities, hospitals bought the book. Then everything with Oprah happened, and the films happened, and everything kind of dissolved. And in the meantime, my husband and I left Australia and moved to Ecuador. So the book just kind of stayed on the side. I didn't do much with it at all. But more recently, a lot of clients have said to me, I'd like to read it. And I said, well, I only have 2 copies left. So my husband now is redoing it. We're putting his art images. He's an artist. We're putting them in, and we're putting it up on Kindle. And it will be there for free. I don't really it's not about money. I'd love people to just enjoy the story. It's a good story. In fact, a friend of mine, a colleague of mine at the university said to me, Maryanne, if you just put a little more sex in it, it would have been a bestseller.
I love it.
So, and I knew once Oprah wanted it and the film producers wanted it, I said, obviously, it's a good book. So anybody can go to my website and they'll find out when it's available. It'll either be Kindle or they can just download it for free from my website. And the book about the babies before birth, well, it's just the stories are, well, to be honest with you, they just open you way, way beyond the material world, because you connect. I'll just tell a quick one so you just get a sense of it. I got a call about 15 years ago from an obstetrician and a midwife. They were at the same office. And they said, could you help us? We have a baby that's dying in utero. And basically, they didn't put it quite like this, but this is what they meant. The mother's health is being compromised every day that the baby survives. We really need to know why the baby is still alive. The baby technically should have died 3 months ago. It's now 7 months and the baby's still looking very strong. The heartbeat is strong. We need to know what's going on here. So the mother called me and she was completely calm. I mean, you would never have thought she was in the process of losing a child. Just very calm, no emotion, just, yes, please do the reading. So I thought, boy, she's really handling this very well. I'd be struggling a lot more. Anyway, I went inside the baby's body. And the baby just said to me, she's not listening, she's not listening, she's not listening, screaming at me. I said, what is she not listening to? She's not fulfilling her purpose on earth. She just runs around and runs around. She doesn't accomplish anything. And she acts like she's confident, but she's just filled with anxiety. And I thought, oh boy. Because the mother sounded completely free of anxiety. So I had no idea how the mother was going to handle this information, but the baby was on fire to convey it to the mother. So the key in intuitive healing is not to give a lot of information, because I want to make sure I say this to your listeners. Information doesn't heal anything. I could babble off, you've got this, you've got that, your problem with your father, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't heal a thing. What heals is intimacy, that I stay with my client, that my client really feels she's not alone in her own suffering, in her own confusion, whatever. And the second way intimacy heals is my client feels safe enough to go to what she's storing in her body. So the art in talking to this mother was to go slowly, carefully, with my heart open, so that there was a chance, just a chance, she might receive what her daughter was saying. So I said it all, and she didn't say a word for 2 minutes, and that's a long time when you're just waiting. She said nothing. Then she took a deep breath, and she said, I am a master of illusion. I give the impression that I'm calm and confident. I live in a state of constant inner anxiety and turmoil, and I never finish anything I start. And then she said, I have no idea why I'm on this earth. And then she took a breath and said, my baby is absolutely correct. There wasn't much more to say. I knew this moment was between her and her little girl, whom she had named Phoebe. So I got off the phone as quickly as I could. And I got a call 8 hours later that the baby had died.
Whoa, that really touched my heart.
And then the woman, I didn't know if I'd ever hear from her. As I said, she was a woman of few words. She was quite a private soul. But about 3 months later, she just wrote, and very simply, just 3 sentences, I want you to know that the reading you did for Phoebe was not wasted. I have made many changes in my life, and I finally know what my purpose on earth is.
Wow. What a beautiful testimony. Yeah. That's beautiful. So your superpower, I love this, because your superpower is not just with a body that is already in this third dimension. It's also with that body that is still energy.
Yeah, well, I love that work. I really love it. Partly because my own struggle began in utero. My mother really, really wanted a child. She went on a pilgrimage to a shrine in Canada called St. Anne de Beaupré. She prayed for 3 days, as did my father. And when she came back, she actually did conceive me. Her prayers were answered. But the doctor was so scared that she would lose me that he told her to lie in bed for the whole time and not move. And had asked her to smoke as much as she could to stay relaxed and to have a few stiff drinks a day. The smoking and drinking, I don't think, took that much of a toll on me, although it may have helped create my allergies. But what happened is my poor mother just didn't move. She was scared of any movement. And so when I moved inside her, she thought she was going to lose me. So she tightened up. And we went into therapy together, and she said, yes, every time she moved, I was terrified. So that's where the confusion in me began. Is life safe? Or is it better to just hold on as tight as you can?
Wow, Maryanne. That is so deep. And that's the invitation I have for all my listeners. And I always say it almost in every show. Number one, we are not saying that you don't need traditional medicine. We are just saying that if you go inside and if you listen to yourself and if you are able to be in intimacy with those emotions, then you're going to be a good help for yourself and for the medical treatment you are following with whoever you are choosing to do so.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, you need to look at your life. I think this is also an invitation to that conscious auto observation. Look at yourself. Look at the way you think. Look at the way you feel. Look at your life. Look at your mom and their lives. Look at your dad. Look at what's going on behind. It's not always evident the reason why your body is choosing that illness to tell you something. But if you are able to connect to your body and develop that intuition, then you're going to be able to find out how to heal yourself. Maryanne, could you please share with us 2 steps or tips for anyone to start their own healing process?
I would say a simple one is to remember the power of the breath. It's absolutely critical to the process of healing, and we tend to forget it. And a simple step is just remember to breathe in the good stuff. Breathe in what lives you, what feeds you, the power of love that lives us all. And breathe out the bad stuff. Breathe out the fear, the sorrow, the anger. Keep the breath moving. It is so pivotal to emotion and pain of all kinds moving through the body. And along with that, use the breath to magnify the pleasure. When your heart is open, when you're receiving love, when you feel connected to what's greater than yourself, use the breath to magnify that feeling so the tissue receives every single bit of that light. And the second one I'd say is the step in healing from the holistic point of view that's so critical is to observe, become aware. Many writers say that we can't really invite things to change until we become aware. So remember that little moment on the doorknob where all of a sudden I just knew what was going on. Allow intuition to speak to you so that you can become more aware of what's feeding into any challenge, not just health, financial, relational. Allow intuition, your feeling, knowing, to heighten your awareness of what's happening.
Maryanne, Please let's remind the listeners where they can go to find out more about you.
The website really is the best place. It's www.Maryanne, Maryanne, all one word, SEA. So it's Maryanne Sea, one word.com.
Thank you.
And I love to hear from people. I'm a Sagittarian. I love to communicate with people. So if anybody writes me, I always listen very carefully to what they're saying. And if I can't be of help, I try to direct them to what I think could be helpful. It's a joy. I mean, to have come out of a bubble, scared of even having anybody near me, to be able to dialogue and communicate with others is obviously a great gift for me.
Oh, thank you. So this is an open invitation for you, the listeners. After you listen to this interview, and if you feel this was helpful, go write out some notes, some words to Maryanne and let her know what was the insight, what was that spark that was initiated through this interview, or even better, if you feel that Maryanne can guide you and may help you in this process that you or a loved one is going through. That's the purpose of this show. It's not just to give information, which is very important, but it's also that you can take action. Thank you so much for sharing your healing superpower with us and with the whole world, Maryanne.
You're very, very welcome, AngelaMaría. Thank you very much.
And thank you all of you for joining us. I am AngelaMaría. Conscious creation, change action, shift energy to live heaven down here on earth. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.